Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
It is time for us to have a bookish good time. Welcome, everyone. This is Books That Make You. And I'm your host, Desiree Duffy. And today we are talking about books that make you fall into an exciting mystery adventure. Oh yeah, the mystery genre. One of our favorites, isn't it? Do you remember how much we loved characters like Sherlock Holmes or even Nancy Drew mysteries? When you have mysteries and they have a dash of adventure, and then fun and some humor and some scary stuff, well, those can be some of the most captivating books ever. And growing up, reading these types of adventures, well, that's what sparks our imaginations. And it can really shape our love of reading throughout our entire lives. If you love a chilling, fun, action-adventure mystery, then let me introduce you to our guest, J.M. Kelly. He is the author of The Lost Treasure. In it, Bobby Holmes and his cousin Brenda Watson. Yeah, you see what we're doing there? They are introduced to us for the first time. And of course, they must solve a mystery, and that just pulls us and hooks us in. And then in JM's next book, it's a sequel called Monster on the Moors. We have the same cast of characters, and now they get to do their work in North York Moors of England. So, J.M. Kelly, he is an amazing human being. He's been a middle school teacher, a vice principal, a co-director of the New Jersey State History Fair, a consultant for the New Jersey Foundation for Educational Administration, and he's currently a board member for the Global Learning Project, and so much more. J.M., hello. Thank you for joining us.
Well, hi, Desiree, and thanks very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Hey, this is going to be fun because, well, mysteries are fun. It's one of the most delicious genres. Everybody has that idea of cozying up with a mystery, right? What is it about them, do you think? Why do people just love mysteries so much?
Well, I think it's the excitement, the adrenaline rush, the idea that they're not quite sure where the story's going. And they like to figure it out themselves sometimes.
Now, tell us about writing a mystery, because it seems that you have to have some things figured out because you're putting these clues in different areas. Do you literally have the idea all figured out from the beginning and then you write backward?
I'd love to sound brilliant and say yes, but I'd have to say no. I'm not quite sure where the story's going to go. And when I first started writing The Lost Treasure, for example, I had begun by doing a storyboard, trying to plot out what's going to happen in Chapter 1, what's going to happen in Chapter 2, who the main characters were. And I just got so lost in that process that I gave it up. And I just sat down at the computer and started writing. And I followed an axiom that Stephen King had written at one point, where he said, sometimes you just have to let the characters take you where they want to go. And that's really what I did at that time, and followed through with the second novel as well. I can give you a specific example. In Monster on the Moors, Bobby Holmes and his mother arrive at the North York Moors National Park and the York train station, which is the gateway to that park. And they cross over the railroad tracks by going through a tunnel, which is underneath the tracks. And they get to a point where the lights are out, and a beggar reaches out and grabs Bobby's leg and issues him a warning not to proceed because he's going to die. It's frightening. It's chilling. You don't know where that's coming from. And as an author, I know I've got to explain who this person is, how did he get there, what his role is, the larger role of what he plays in his story. And at that point, I had no idea. I just knew it made sense to have someone there to issue this advanced warning. He shows up again later in the story as Bobby and his mates are exploring the town of Whitby in the North York Moors. Again, he issues him a warning. And again, I have no idea who he is, what he's about, where he came from, where he's going. And it didn't make any sense to me, but I still know I have to explain this to the reader because the reader wants to know and they don't forget. Later in the story, I know exactly what his role is. I know how he came to be. I know how he's influencing Bobby. And it all just pulled together and made sense because that's the way the story went.
So it really is like the characters were telling you the story.
You know, I hate to sound creepy about it, but yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes.
And it's true. I hear that from so many authors. And yeah, it might sound creepy or surreal, or maybe we're all crazy as authors, right? Those are the voices talking to us in our head. But if so many of us as writers, as authors, are feeling that same thing, I mean, there's got to be something there. That's just part of the process. And whether or not we're pulling parts of our imagination forward that we didn't even know were there, I mean, in a way, maybe it's our brain. Maybe we actually do have the story, but our brain is feeding it to us in such a way so that we as writers can actually craft it.
I think that's absolutely correct. And there are times I'll wake up in the morning and my wife will accuse me of being half crazy because of the ideas, the dreams I have, and some of the things that I'll say what I was thinking about, and it sometimes connects with the story. Mm-hmm. And you'll get a brainstorm in the middle of the night sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And I hear that a lot, too. And again, that's our subconscious, I would like to think, kind of going to work. So. Yeah. And then we get the answer in a dream. So, and it's really amazing, too. So you tried to plot things out. In the writing world, there are plotters and there are pantsers, people that fly by the seat of their pants. But it sounds like you tried to plot, but it really ended up you ended up being more of a pantser.
That's true. It just didn't work for me the other way. And I think that's a caveat for most writers, is you have to find the way that makes sense to you. There's no one size fits all for all writers, I think.
Yeah, and it seems that many are somewhere in the middle. They're not a true plotter or a true pantser. Even sometimes just writing a rough outline will get the ball rolling.
There's no question there, and I think sometimes you're always thinking about it. So it's not that things aren't being done, even though you're not sitting at the table pounding away at the computer. The story's always there in your head, and it's always playing over and over, and sometimes you just get a breakthrough by letting it play out on its own.
And then sometimes some of the best stuff comes when you have that moment of inspiration and you can go back and tweak something or rewrite it a little bit.
That's true. Going back to rewrite, I do that pretty much every time. Every time I open up the computer, I'll reread what I've written previously, at least going back a chapter or so.
Now tell us a little bit about Bobby and Brenda. Can you describe them as characters and set the stage for the books that they're in?
Yeah, I wanted Bobby to be pretty much an every kid, someone who's just like everyone else. He's wrestling with the gifts that he has. He has a sense of clairvoyance. So he sees things about the future that he can't quite make out. He can't quite put it all together and say as in a prediction. But they do make sense to him on one level. They cause him a great deal of fear or a great deal of concern, and they sort of lead him in a particular direction. But he wrestles with kids with the kinds of things that most kids wrestle with. Will my friends and family support me? Will they like me? Even though we've been apart for a long period of time, do we still have the same kind of relationship. Those are normal things that kids wrestle with on a daily basis, and I wanted Bobby to be that kind of kid. Brenda, I wanted to be very much a strong female character, and that she is. In the first book, The Lost Treasure, she is one that suffers at the hands of the evil character in the story. And she comes through it in shiny colors, but she has to struggle, and she shows her strength through that struggle. And I'm very pleased with the way that character turned out. They have two friends, two very close friends that they go through these adventures with. One is Stevie, who's a real wise guy and a little bit of a punk, and that's by design. And he adds a lot of humor to the stories. And they also have a friend, Michael, who in the first story is an unknown character. He's new to the town, and they find him to be a little different, a little strange, and they can't quite put a finger on what makes him that way. But he struggles with Asperger's syndrome, and they come around. I won't give away too much of the story, but they do come around. He becomes part of their group, and in fact, in the first story is a major hero character.
You really hit on some of the interesting archetypes and taken some things too and twisted them in unique ways. Having an Asperger's syndrome character is really exciting, especially nowadays. It seems, and as a former educator too, it seems that putting out characters that children, students can identify with is really important. You never saw that, 20, 30 years ago, but nowadays, kids that are experiencing, whether it's Asperger's syndrome or something else, now they have somebody that they can be like, hey, that's like me. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yes, and in the first story, The Lost Treasure, you get a real sense of what he struggles with and how it impacts on the other kids around him. And also how his mother deals with that and the relationship between he and his mother, which is key to both stories, and the success of Michael as a character. He also is an amalgam of many, or several, I should say, students that I've come across over the years as a school principal.
And that's really great, too, that you're pulling in your real-life experience and knowledge. How does your history as an educator inform how you write? Are you looking to send a message, help people learn, teach them lessons along the way?
That's a good question. First of all, I would say that it helps to shape how you think about kids and the characters. And I've got a pretty good sense of that age group and how they interact with each other, how they appear to the adults around them, and how they view the adult world from their perspective. I would also say that I didn't set out to share any wisdom about certain themes that might. I didn't set out to implant them in the story, but they did come through, and they're generational themes that we can all relate to, such as good versus evil, kids confronted with seemingly insurmountable odds at times, which is how they tend to view the world around them. And no responsible adult will step in and believe them and help them and give them the sense that they know what they're talking about, and they need to solve this on their own. So there's a great deal of individuality that comes through here as well.
And tell us the age ranges that you are targeting, because I feel your writing appeals to all ages. I love reading young adult, even middle grade books. So tell me about how you feel who your target audience is and who should be reading your books.
Well, at first I thought middle school age, middle grade age, which is probably around grades 6 through 8, could be grades 6 through 9. I have had adults read the story, and they have come back, given me feedback with regards to how it made them feel nostalgic for some of the adventure stories they read themselves growing up. I have been exposed to kids that have read this on the 5th grade level. And I have to tell you, even at that age, that young age, they had very incisive questions and were able to pick out certain things in the story that I frankly hadn't thought about until I discussed it with them.
Isn't that fun when somebody finds something in your writing that you didn't even realize was there? That's cool.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Now, tell us about, because you hit on something there I can identify with. I was a fan of Nancy Drew and Sherlock Holmes and Encyclopedia Brown. So where did you pull your inspiration from? I'm pretty sure Sherlock Holmes is in there, but what are some of the other ones that you pulled from?
Yeah, I've always loved, as a kid, certain stories. I was not what you would call a great reader. I didn't always have a book in my hip pocket. I wasn't always reading. But there were certain things that I thoroughly enjoyed. Jules Verne, for example, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Some of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan stories. Certainly the Hardy Boys mysteries. Swiss Family Robinson. That kind of stuff. As an adult or as a growing adult, there are certain books that I still get a kick out of that still give me that sense of adventure and mystery. Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're actually based in New Jersey and are very prolific writers. They wrote the book Relic, which is one of the best horror stories I think I've ever read. Mm-hmm. And one of the characters in that story has become somewhat of a career for them. They've penned out close to a dozen books with that character alone. It was a special FBI agent, Pendergast. And then there are other books, H.J. Rawls, J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter stories, Stephen King, certainly books such as It, Salem's Lot, The Shining, and Conan Doyle. And I'm also influenced greatly by movies and TV shows that have that kind of theme, such as The Goonies, It, Stranger Things, that kind of show.
Oh, yeah. Now you're talking. Now you're talking my language. Love all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So as somebody who is an author and an educator, and obviously the parents who are listening should buy your books for their kids, but what kind of reading list might you suggest to them? You've listed off a lot of great ones. If they have a child who is loving reading and they like this genre, what are the top 2 or 3 books you might recommend for them to grab?
I would suggest Neil Gaiman's book, The Graveyard Book, which I think is fantastic. The plot, the characters, the way, the pacing, his writing is just extraordinary, and that's a really great book. It begins with a murder of a family, and a baby crawls into a cemetery, and the ghosts of the cemetery are about protecting the baby from the murderer. It's really a very interesting story. It's very well done and a great adventure mystery kind of thing. I'd also recommend Joseph Delaney's Apprentice series. There are a number of books in that series. I found them to be pretty challenging and interesting, and of the horror genre that I think kids would enjoy.
And what advice would you give to educators, teachers, librarians? What themes or what topics, what subjects, what books do you think that they should be sharing with their students?
I think they should be sharing The Lost Treasure and Monster on the Moors. That's what I think. It's whatever interests a kid. I think most librarians, and at least ones I've come in contact with over the years, have had the kids' interests in mind when they select reading materials. And they have a pretty good idea about what interests their students. And they do a great job of providing what they can to make that an enjoyable experience for kids. Just to get kids reading, whatever interest they have, encourage it, and enthusiastically embrace it and try to provide what you can for them.
And you do write for adults as well. You've written Tommy Ailes, Good for What Ails You. Can you tell us a little bit about, tell us about that.
Tommy Ailes is definitely an adult book. This is not a children's book. And it's sort of a comedic mystery. Tommy Ailes is a wise guy attorney who lives in his mother's basement with his mentally challenged cousin for a roommate. And they get mixed up. He draws the short straw on a murder case that puts him in contact with the head of the Florida Mafia, a drug dealer that turns movie mogul, and a bimbo accused of killing her husband, all to the backdrop of the Sarasota Film Festival. So it's got a lot going on there, and I think it's hysterical. But hopefully you'll read it sometime and let me know.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on there. How does that feel when you're juggling the different types of genres? Because you have a nonfiction book as well. So you've done nonfiction, adult, young adult / middle grade. How does that feel as a writer jumping around like that?
I like it. I actually started with The Lost Treasure. That was my first. And then my first novel, I should clarify. Went to Tommy Ailes. That was my second novel. And I was back to a second in the Bobby Holmes series. And that's my third novel. And prior to all three of those, I wrote this nonfiction book. One of the preeminent educators of our time, his name is Roland Barthes, started the Harvard Principal Center. He went to Princeton. He's a really smart guy. As a grant and as a school principal, I wrote to him and asked if I could spend some time just picking his brain. And consequently, he invited me up to Maine, where he lived, and on his boat, and we cruised the Maine coast, and I got to ask him questions about education that I've been dying to ask. And the result was this book, In Search of Leadership.
I can just imagine you out there on the boat and asking those questions. So tell us, what's your top leadership skill or piece of advice?
Just understand that you're there as a party to help others and to make their job easier, not to tell people what you think is the way to go, or leadership is not defined by what you know specifically, but how you treat others, how you deal with other people's interests.
That's great advice. So, okay, Lost Treasure, that's been out for a while. Mm-hmm. Monster on the Moors, dropping now. What are you working on next?
I'm working on a third in the series, the Bobby Holmes series. It's tentatively titled The Devil's or Son of the Devil, and it takes place in New Zealand, which is an incredibly beautiful landscape. And I would encourage anyone who does any kind of travel, if you haven't been there, that's a definite place to go. Put it on your list. And it was very inspiring, much like the North York Moors. That actually became or was the muse for my story up there. It's a just gorgeous country.
And do you enjoy traveling to the locations to kind of draw that inspiration?
I do. And in terms of Monster on the Moors, my wife had a business meeting in London, and I accompanied her. And afterwards, I said, I'd really love to get up to this part of the country. I've been impressed with it by what I've read, and I'd love to see it in person. And it's only a 2-hour train ride from London, so we did so and spent a few days up there. And as I was there, you could just sense the interesting, eerie, foreboding atmosphere of the place.
And it's really exciting when you can travel to those places, those locations, and actually put yourself into those settings and those scenes. Can I just ask you a quick question? Because you do have a way of creating these great settings. So when you're building your world, when you're at these locations and you're drawing inspiration, do you then build out your world? Do you think about the things that they're going to see and the places that they're going to do? How do you craft? How do you do your world building?
I think about places I've been and how they've impacted on me, what they look like, how I can weave that into the story. If a place, for example, in The Lost Treasure, the town of Mountain Lake, Connecticut, is a fictitious town, but it's based on places I've been, some communities that I've seen laid out like that, and it becomes something different, but based on something real.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Stephen King. He bases a lot of his settings where he knows Maine, and he has Derry, Maine. You hear that over and over again. Jim, it's been so much fun talking to you today. Can you tell us where people can find you online, where they can find your website, find all of your books, your social media, etc.?
Certainly. First of all, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. And I can be reached at jmkellyauthor.com. That's my website. Mm-hmm. And also JM Kelly is my Facebook page.
And your books are available on Amazon, and people can find you there as well. Again, thank you for being with us here today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. My name is Desiree Duffy. You can find out more about us. We're at booksthatmakeyou.com. And there you can sign up for our newsletter. We give away lots of bookish goodies. You can find out more information about Jim and his books. We've got articles about The Lost Treasure and Monster on the Moors, so check that out. And you can follow us. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.